What up, fam? Chief X, the God best reincarnated with some old common sense science. You see this lady? She's holding her card. Her citizenship card for the Cherokee Indian Nation. But is she a Cherokee Indian? Or was she a descendant of slaves of the Cherokee Nation? Huh? Let's talk about this. Slave of the tribe. The hidden history of the freemen. Freemen were free West African slaves who were free. They weren't enslaved by the European. So they call them freemen. Freemen is code for a black free running around in America that's not enslaved. They're free. Okay? So here's this lady holding up her card. Cherokee Nation, as you see. Now, I've been telling people that your great-great-grandparents and people who are claiming that they got Indian in their blood and told you in the story passed down, you're not Indian by blood. You're Indian by culture and joining the tribe and becoming a citizen because Cherokees and all the 5 civilized tribes had slaves. There was over 500 tribes, Indian tribes, but only 5 had slaves. Those 5 is the only one that niggas claim they're part of. Why? Because they were slave of those Indians. They weren't the they weren't the indigenous people. They were West African slaves who became citizens because they were freemen or slaves of the Cherokees and they were granted property later. Let's go. I know what I'm talking about. I've been telling you this all fucking year. This article, let me just read a little bit. Late summer, after more than a decade of legal battles, this is recent, the U.S. federal court ruled that the rights enjoyed by members of the Cherokee Nation also extend to the descendants of the slaves owned by the nation before the Civil War. The court upheld the 1866 treaty between the U.S. government and the Cherokee Nation. Not you, the Cherokee Nation. The Native Americans, not the Africans. Before the Civil War, the court upheld 1866 treaty between the U.S. government and the Cherokee Nation, which granted all the rights of Native Cherokees, including citizenship in the nation, to the liberated slaves. So since my great-grandparents or our great-great-grandparents felt that they were Cherokee citizens or any of the 5 civilized tribes citizens, they felt that that's what they was. So they passed down the story, hey, I'm Cherokee, I'm not an African slave, out of shame. Now, some were mixed, but very few because, let me tell you why. This is a book, Black Masters, Indian Slaves. Black Slaves, Indian Masters. Slavery and Emancipation and Citizenship in the Native American South. See, these 5 civilized tribes, the Indians or the Native Americans, became like Southerners. They became Southerners, out of character. And they adopted European Southerner behavior. They dressed in suits and wore ties and all that shit. Unlike the other 495 other tribes that wasn't the 5 civilized tribes, they wore suits and ties and things like that. So they wore traditional gear, but guess what? Okay? Let me see, is this it? Okay, here it go. Okay, by the mid-19th century, so you can see, By the mid-19th century, laws existed in both nations that banned intermarriage between who? Blacks and Indians. They knew the difference between blacks and Indians. When they say blacks, they're talking about those who came on slave ships or freedmen. For example, Choctaw lawmakers allowed white men to achieve citizenship through marriage to a Choctaw woman, but forbade a Negro or descendant of a Negro from enjoying the same privilege. Likewise, the Chickasaw Nation, also the Cherokee, in the Chickasaw Nation, Cherokee Nation, the punishment for publicly taking up with a Negro slave was a steep fine, whipping, or the ultimate punishment, banishment from the nation, and the dissolving of all kinship ties. Right? So they saying if these Choctaw, these Cherokees, and the other 5 civilized tribes, if the Native American, if the Indian is getting caught fucking with an African woman, having sex with her, you're getting banished. So no, they wasn't too keen on trying to have sex and fucking. So that's why it was few mixed babies. There wasn't a lot of mixed babies, although there were some. Okay, but rare. Let's go back. The court okay, here we go. In 2007, Cherokee Nation voted to amend its constitution to limit membership to only those persons descended from ancestors as Cherokee by blood on the original Dawes Rolls Registry of Native Americans. This eliminated citizenship rights of those descended from Cherokee freemen who were also on the roll. So you do have people on the roll, but the roll is distinguishing Cherokee by blood or Cherokee freeman or just a Cherokee citizen from a slave who was given land. Okay? The Cherokee freemen are only the most recent group of freemen to regain citizenship. The Seminole freemen descended from who? Escaped slaves that joined the Seminole Nation in Florida and traveled with them along the Trail of Tears, previously won back some rights. There are still others, however, who are excluded by their respective indigenous governments. The history of the Native American freemen is not widely known. One reason why many don't have this history is that out of over 500 federally recognized tribes, only 5 ever practiced chattel slavery. Over 500 federally recognized Indian tribes, only 5 practiced chattel slavery. And them are the 5 that you niggas claim that you are, but you're not. I've been closed this case. You niggas is West African. You're not the Native American, and you were not here prior to the slave trade jumping off. There were no Africans, no black nappy-headed people in the Americas, Brazil, Caribbeans, North America, South America, Mexico, prior to the slave trade. No Africans was in Americas, Brazil, or Caribbeans. The only way you got here was the slave trade. One of that, okay, here we go. History of the Native, okay. One of them is the Cherokee, Muskogee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, weren't engaged in actual slavery. Excuse me, I read that wrong. One of them is the Cherokee, Muskogee Creek, Choctaw, and Chickasaw weren't engaged in actual slavery. It is widely believed that they were just buying slaves to either set them free or to free black family members. This wasn't really the case. These tribes, 4 of the Eurocentrically termed 5 civilized tribes. I hadn't read this part yet, but it agrees with my history and what I already know. It says, what? These tribes, 4 of the Eurocentrically termed 5 civilized tribes. It's because these 5 tribes became Southerners in a sense. They was copying what the white man was doing. The other over 495 was on their own mission, didn't give a fuck about them white men and was trying to get away from the white man. These 5 civilized tribes was trying to go head up and be friendly. Not really friendly, but they had issues, but they was trying to be Southerners. In the United States, the system of chattel slavery conferred a vast amount of power and influence on slave owners and shaped the destiny of the country. I don't really need to keep going on, but the Dawes, I'll post a link. Okay? Case closed. You're not Native American. You maybe, just maybe, 1 out of 1,000 blacks have some Native American blood. But all you niggas on the internet, on social media, Facebook, talking all that shit, indigenous groups, Africans ain't African Americans and all that shit, all y'all wrong as fuck. Or liars, and or have mental health issues because you suffer from self-hate and the shame of being African. That's all that is. Your black ass is African. Chief X, I'm out.